Having used the Super Ultrawide for almost a year, it was a no-brainer that my next monitor upgrade would be in the realms of a Super Ultrawide, and here's why. You know that annoying bezel you get in the middle when you have two 27-inch monitors side by side? Never in a million years would I want to experience that, especially after getting so used to a seamless 49-inch display. Secondly, the screen real estate is an absolute game changer, especially for someone like me who's a content creator and doesn't have to endure the annoying feeling of editing on a small screen. Hello and welcome to the Value Space. In this video, I'll be taking you through a review of the best Super Ultrawide in 2022 according to me. Another question you must be asking yourself is, why didn't I stick with the one I had? Well, hear me out. Even though it was specifically meant for gaming, the specs, performance, picture quality and overall monitor experience is day and night between the Samsung Odyssey Neo G9 and the Samsung CJ89, which I previously used. I'll be delving a lot more into that in just a bit because I know you guys are most excited about what's inside. Inside the box, there's a USB 3.0 cable, a right-angle power cord, DisplayPort 1.4 cable that can actually support up to an 8K monitor, a rare transparent cylinder cover, then there's a bezel mount which will come in handy as I plan to mount it on my monitor arm. Last but not least, a wide monitor stand, a wide plastic back panel to keep the ports and cables covered, and finally the showstopper, this monstrosity of a monitor, the Samsung Odyssey Neo G9. Before I get to turn it on, I'll quickly assemble the stand, and Samsung actually recommends installing the stand before lifting it out of the box in the included instructions. For the purpose of this video, I'll assemble it, but it will eventually end up on my monitor arm. Installation is pretty straightforward. Take the rear stand and align it with the screw holes, then give it a slight push, and once you hear the click sound, it means it's properly aligned. From there, use the provided screws to fasten the monitor stand onto the back of the monitor. Next, snap the transparent monitor stand head cover into two, then place them around the head of the monitor stand and snap them together, after which you'll give it a slight twist, and once you hear a click sound, it's locked in place. From there, fasten the included base monitor stand around and you're done. The stand is surprisingly height adjustable, putting in mind the sheer size of this monitor. It can rise 120mm, swivel 15 degrees to the right or left, plus or minus 2 degrees, tilt 3 degrees forward, plus or minus 2 degrees, and can tilt backwards 13 degrees, plus or minus 2 degrees. Design-wise, majority of the build remains similar to what we saw in the previous gen Odyssey G9, with a huge chunk of the backside being covered with a glossy white plastic outer housing. With regards to dimension, it's nearly 120cm wide, while the stand legs span almost 80cm, so if you don't have a huge desk, it will be chewing up huge chunks of your desk space. By the way, excuse the cable mess, don't roast me in the comments, all that will be cleaned up when I eventually mount it on the monitor arm. At the head of the monitor stand, you'll find the Infinity Core lighting, which has see-through lighting around it that enables the light to illuminate, which adds a bit of a futuristic look to it. Do keep in mind the luminance of the Infinity Core lighting isn't that significant, and I would recommend getting a monitor light if you intend to get a backlight that will reduce eye strain. Moving along, the stand comes with a flick headphone holder that you can flick back into the stand if you don't intend to use it. In my opinion, I find the practicality of this headphone stand a bit questionable, owing to the fact that the screen is humongous and reaching out to the back would always be a juggle. On the flip side though, the stand adds some functionality through the cable management channel that you can access by removing the glossy white plastic cover and passing your cords through the channel. I also like the idea of the white plastic back panel, which hides the cables plugged into the I/O of the computer, therefore ensuring the setup remains visually pleasing. Moving to the front, Samsung continues to maintain the black theme, and we can't help but notice how accentuated the curvature is, which clearly highlights the so-called 1000-hour curvature. which by the way would form a complete circle if you were to create a circle using 4 of these monitors. For those who don't know, the curvature closely matches the field of view of the human eye, which allows for a comfortable viewing experience whilst using the monitor. On the bottom right hand side, you'll find 3 buttons and the OSD joystick similar to what we saw in the previous gen. It's controlled by moving the joystick and it includes features like black equalizer, various color controls, etc. etc. The monitor is also VESA mount compatible with the 100mm by 100mm pattern, and the monitor just clears 31 pounds with the stand, which is about 14 kilograms, and 26 pounds without, which is about 12 kilograms. Moving to its specs, it does come with a long and impressive spec sheet, hence the hefty price tag, but more on the price tag a little later. Rolling down the spec sheet, we are looking at a 49-inch 5120 by 1440 VA panel with a 1000R curvature. The refresh rate is an impressive 240Hz with support for AMD FreeSync Premiere Pro and NVIDIA G-Sync compatibility. Something to note though, you wouldn't be getting the 240Hz using a HDMI cable because they don't have enough bandwidth, and that's where the DisplayPort comes in, but not just any DisplayPort, it has to be DisplayPort 1.4. Another area that got massive improvement is in HDR. The previous Gen G9 had a paltry 10 edge-lit dimming zones, which was trifling for true HDR visuals, more so for a large display like this one's. Samsung addressed this by swapping out the backlit for a new mini LED version that includes 2048 local dimming zones. In addition to that, Samsung lists support for what appears to be their own in-house HDR standard, Quantum HDR 2000, which if you'd ask me, I'd say I find it rather meaningless, although the spec sheet does list up to 2000 nits of HDR brightness. Another area that has received a spec boost is the port selection. Like the previous gen, we still have DisplayPort 1.4 connected with display stream compression, which provides bandwidth for the full 5120 by 1440 at 240Hz with 10-bit HDR. The HDMI ports on the other hand have got a bit of an upgrade to HDMI 2.1. As for the display, the Odyssey Neo G9 has a VA panel accompanied by Samsung Quantum Matrix technology, which is a combination of mini LED and 2048 local dimming zones. Like mentioned earlier, it's got a refresh rate of up to 240Hz, but to get that, you'll need a beefy system that supports DisplayPort 1.4 with display stream compression, but then again, that's not specific to this monitor, it cuts across any 240Hz monitors. It's also got a 1000R curved display, which is designed to mimic the curvature of the human eye. For those who might not know, when you view a flat screen monitor for an extended period of time, your eyes make small but continual focus shifts that lead to increased fatigue. This monitor's curved display helps your eyes maintain a constant focus across the entire screen, resulting in less fatigue and a more comfortable viewing experience. It's also got a picture-in-picture mode, which allows you to have 2 separate displays at the same time. As for brightness, it does dial in at an impressive 2000 nits of peak brightness and a 1,000,000:1 contrast ratio, which enables enhanced color expression and depth. If you're a big fan of TV shows and movies, you wouldn't be disappointed by streaming them on this, as it comes with HDR support. Do keep in mind though, the impressive 2000 nits is limited to HDR content, whether it's movies or games. But when you're back to SDR content, which you'll most likely be looking at majority of the time, then you'll be back to 400 nits of peak brightness. Moving on to color accuracy. Color accuracy on the other hand is impressive with 1000% on the sRGB coverage, 95% Adobe RGB coverage, and 94% on the DCI P3 color gamut. For those thinking of using it for video editing, it would pass, but I'd recommend looking for a monitor with a color accuracy of delta E less than 2 or better, as well as a color gamut of at least 95% DCI P3, a high contrast ratio, and a higher brightness level. Resolution is also key, as more projects are produced in 4K or higher, as is HDR support if you're working with HDR footage. The Dell S2721QS would be a good pick. This automatically shifts the rocker of this monitor towards gaming, which I'll be getting into in just a bit. Even though I don't game as much as I used to, the invitation to try gaming on this monitor was irresistible. Now, if you haven't picked it up by now, this monitor is specifically built for gaming. With AMD FreeSync Premiere Pro and NVIDIA G-Sync compatibility, this would be the ultimate oasis for true gamers out there. As you all know, refresh rates play an important part in the overall experience of a game, and this monitor has a 2 milliseconds response time and a refresh rate of up to 240 Hz. Gaming on it the past week has been nothing short of phenomenal. Most of the games I play on it have full support for super ultra wides, and the result is some of the most immersive gaming experience, especially when playing story-driven games. Here's where the HDR 2000 and 1000R curvature come in clutch, to the point where I'm considering shifting my gaming setup to this PC. Its low input lag emphasizes why it was purpose-built for gaming by enabling you seize winning control over your enemies on games like Rogue Company, thanks to its 2 millisecond response time. Speaking of response time, it basically stays unchanged from the previous gen Odyssey G9 at 2 milliseconds. By gaming standards, that remains one of the fastest, but complaints around how the monitor doesn't allow you to change the overdrive settings when adaptive sync is enabled are still rife. As majority of gamers will be using it with VRR, otherwise known as variable refresh rate, sticking to standard default configurations will do the trick. With such screen real estate, there's definitely lots of benefits that come with it. Unlike the tiny monitors where you'd have to close one window in order to view the other, or have to really minimize them in order to use both at the same time, with the Odyssey Neo G9 you can have 3 fairly decent sized windows at the same time and keep chipping away with whatever project you're doing. One of my favorite apps that helps me maximize this capability is called Magnet. With Magnet, you can customize how big you want your windows to snap and whatever layout suits you. In my case, I like to have 3 windows open and have my main window in the center and the secondary windows on either side. My personal preference being the 8:9 aspect ratio for all 3 windows. All I gotta do is click on the up icon on the top menu of the screen, and a drop down menu rolls out from which I can pick what part of the screen I want the window to snap. For example, when writing my scripts, I'd have Microsoft Word in the middle, my browser on one end, and any references I might need on the other. In Premiere Pro, I enjoy the screen real estate that enables me to scrub through my timeline with so much ease, and the viewer and media pool are much larger compared to when you use a smaller display like a laptop. After using it for a week, I'd highly recommend the Samsung Odyssey Neo G9. It's not all roses and sunshine though. Starting on the gaming front, not all games support the 32:9 aspect ratio. Games with the 21:9 aspect ratio will have the black bars on either side. Given the hefty price tag, inbuilt speakers, USB-C ports and a built-in KVM switch would be a welcomed addition. Another notable issue would be, despite being properly mounted on its original stand, it still has a bit of a wobble, especially when adjusting controls on the OSD stick. Having initially come up with lots of quality control issues, Samsung has made significant improvements through the software updates and on the physical units itself for an all-round user experience. Whether you're a content creator, gamer, video creator or just a casual user, this will surely improve your overall workflow. If you've got to this point of the video, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. People of the internet, if you're looking to cross over to the super ultra wides, check out this video. I'm signing out. See you on the next one.